This is one of the few Batman games that really gets it right. Batman is a creature of the night. He strikes fear into the superstitious and cowardly lot of criminals that run rampant in Gotham City. Imagine Splinter Cell, but without the guns, mixed with Prince of Persia, but without the parkour, and you will have a fair idea of how this game plays. The bad guys are tough, so you need to soften them up first through fear. In many areas, there are parts of the environment that can be affected by batarangs. Throw one at a can of kerosene or a weak point of some scaffolding, and the bad guys will be unnerved by the resulting havoc. Or just make one of their buddies go missing. That works too. Once they are somewhat frightened, you can frighten them some more by kicking their butts. However, if they start getting some good hits in, or you take too long to finish them, they start to recover. I thought that the actual combat was a little clunky, but I have been spoiled by the excellent combat system from the Arkham games. You can also throw gas grenades and flashbangs at them, but you can only do so when they are already frightened. This is my biggest complaint with the game. There are many times you don't have any environmental effects to work with, and it would be nice to disorient them before engaging them. But no, they have to be scared first. You know what is a good way to scare someone before you attack? Throwing a flashbang in their face. You also can't throw batarangs at people. You can use them to hit the button on an elevator, but you can't hit a person in the hand and make them drop their weapon. The inability to use these weapons the way Batman would is the game's one major flaw. At certain points in the game, Batman will come across a person that he can interrogate. While it's a cool idea, the execution is half-baked. You pick a guy up, press a button to ask him a question, he answers, then you press a button to hit him and ask him another question. It continues like this until he gives up all the info that he has. There are no options in what to say to the guy, or any way to intimidate them. It is pretty much a cutscene that you have superficial control over. Also, Batman hits the guy each time he asks a question, even if the guy is cooperating. It's not like him at all. Even though this is not an open world game where you can go anywhere, the levels are designed in a way that usually gives you the feeling of being in a much bigger space than you really are. There are also 2 levels where you get to drive the tumbler. They are pretty fun, but a little one-dimensional. You pretty much race along a set path and try to run other cars off the road. It plays like Burnout. In fact, these sections are designed by the Burnout team. Like I said, it's fun, but something more along the lines of Driver would have been a lot better. The controls are very responsive. The only problem is that there is only one control scheme, with no option to customize it. The visuals are among the best for the PS2. It looks a lot like the movie, though some of the textures are blurry. I would say that the sound is almost on par with the movie. Nothing sounds like it came from a stock audio library. When you punch someone, it doesn't sound like the Foley artist just hit a punching bag. It sounds real. I also love how that when you target someone, you can hear their heartbeat. It's there to give you an audio clue as to how scared your opponent is, but it also increases the tension of the scene. I also really like how most of the bad guys have conversations with each other. Unfortunately, the game does not feature any of the music from the movie. The music composed for the game is pretty good, and it fits what's happening on screen, but the lack of the movie score, especially the main theme, is a big disappointment. But overall, the sound is really good, and it made me regret that I do not have a surround sound system. The game can be pretty difficult even on easy mode. If you run into a thug with an automatic and he gets a shot off, then you are probably going to die. Thankfully, there are plenty of checkpoints. I tried the highest difficulty setting for a few minutes and lost most of my health in the very first enemy encounter. So if you are looking for a challenge, Batman Begins will give you one. The game version of Batman Begins retells the story from the movie for the most part, but it also makes some significant alterations. The game starts with Batman's first meeting with Dr. Crane, and then flashes back to Bruce's training and first missions as Batman, before picking up where it left off. I like how Alfred takes a more proactive approach in the game, and essentially fills the role that Oracle does in the comics. The Arkham Asylum section of the story is greatly expanded, and is probably the best part of the game. It is easy to see why this became the entire setting for the next major Batman game. But while some parts of the story are expanded, Other parts are almost left out entirely. This especially hurts Rachel Dawes and Jim Gordon. They just kinda show up without any real introduction or explanation about why they are important or how Batman knows them. Rachel hardly has any dialogue, and Gordon appears in 2 brief scenes and drops out of the story completely. I can see why they didn't bother to get Gary Oldman to do his lines. Even Mr. Dawes has a larger role than Gordon in the game. All the other major actors from the movie reprise their roles, to varying levels of success. Christian Bale does a fair job, but doesn't bring the same level of performance that he did in the movie. The same goes for almost all of the rest of the cast. I don't blame the actors. I think that you just cannot get the same performance in a sound booth that you can get on a set, especially from people that do not have a lot of voiceover experience. Katie Holmes seems to have suffered the worst in this transition, though it doesn't help that she didn't get very good lines in the first place. Michael Caine is the exception here. He delivers a great performance despite this being his first time doing voice work. This can partially be attributed to the fact that most of his dialogue is over a radio, so Michael Caine gets to sit on a stool and talk into a microphone, to play a guy sitting on a stool and talking into a microphone. I don't say this to diminish his performance, but he is not handicapped by the format in the way that the other actors are. The game is very violent. You don't have to worry about any blood or gore, but you will see plenty of brutal hand-to-hand combat, as well as people getting caught in explosions, getting electrocuted, and being bit by other people. In many cases, it is unclear if these people survived, but it is difficult to believe that they did. The bad guys curse quite often, because, well, bad guys have poor manners. But apparently their mamas did something right, because they keep it relatively tame. They mostly use the H word and the D word, but one did use the B word. Batman Begins is a good game. It has a few problems that keep it from being great, but it is still fun and interesting. This is essentially the spiritual predecessor to Batman Arkham Asylum. I recommend Batman Begins.
Alfred, I need a way to get inside the asylum.
Might I suggest donning a pair of tights and pretending you're a Batson?